Why some feel so much pain for Israelis and so little pain for us, the Palestinians? What is the problem? Do we have the wrong faith? The wrong skin color? The wrong nationality? The wrong origin?
以色列把中国当成对手，也选错了对象。你应该明白，从这一轮巴以冲突一开始，中方就以非常明确无误的语言谴责一切伤害平民的行为，伤害平民、违反国际法的行为。我们所说的平民，既包括巴勒斯坦平民，也包括以色列平民。
Hello everyone, welcome to Talk It Out with me, Jingjing. This show always tries to show you the different voices and stories from China and the rest of the global south. We have been witnessing the tragic conflict between Israel and Palestine for weeks now. The results are devastating. The human causes are catastrophic. In this video, I want to give you some updates on the current conflicts and show you two clips of two very powerful speeches at the United Nations. First, on the updates. On October the 28th, there was finally a resolution overwhelmingly supported by the majority of countries of members of the United Nations. That was after weeks of deadlocks at the United Nations over a response to the Israel-Palestine crisis. On October the 28th, the UN General Assembly adopts resolution on protection of civilians and upholding legal and humanitarian obligations on the ongoing Gaza crisis. Look at the voting results of the resolution. 120 countries are in favor of adopting the resolution, 14 voted against it, 45 abstained. But after the image was shown, the UN also updated that because one country experienced technical difficulty. So the final result was actually 121 countries are in favor of adopting the resolution and 44 abstained. I think this result shows clearly the will of the international community, right? The resolution was overwhelmingly supported by the member states of the United Nations. Before that, member states of the United Nations, member states on the Security Councils have failed to reach an agreement on 4 draft solutions. So, I mean, this is finally being adopted overwhelmingly by a number of countries. But guess what's the response from Israel? Israel's UN ambassador Gilad Erdan rejected the resolution. He said the UN no longer holds any legitimacy or relevance, and he accused those who voted yes of preferring to support the defense of Nazi terrorists instead of Israel. That's Israel's ambassador to the UN's response over this resolution supported by the majority of the member states of the United Nations. Palestine's UN envoy Riyad Mansour's response is, it sends the message to everyone, enough is enough. This war has to stop. The carnage against our people has to stop, and humanitarian assistance should begin to enter the Gaza Strip. That's the response from 2 ambassadors. And now I want to show you the 2 speeches at the United Nations. You know, before this resolution, the member states of the Security Council failed to reach an agreement over 4 drafts, right? The last one, China and Russia vetoed it. The first speech is from China's representative to the United Nations, Zhang Jun. So he explained why China vetoed this UN Security Council draft resolution supported by the United States. Zhang criticized that draft solution was seriously out of balance and does not reflect the world's strongest call for a ceasefire and an end to the fighting, and it does not help resolve the issue. Israel's representative at the UN criticized China and Russia's decision. So here's the thing at the UN. Take a look.
To those who voted against this resolution, I must say that your decision shocks me to my core. In Israel, we are fighting for our very survival. My elderly parents living in Ashkelon have spent the last 20 days running back and forth to their bomb shelters as rockets rain down on them, deliberately on them, on civilians. And you cannot condemn even these deliberate attacks on civilians perpetrated by terror organizations? If any of your countries endured a similar massacre, I am certain that you would act with much greater force than Israel. Much greater force. There would be no question in your minds that such a barbaric slaughter requires a broad military operation against the terrorists who committed such inhumane atrocities to eradicate their terrorist capabilities in order to make sure that such atrocities can never happen again. How would Moscow react if terrorist death squads wiped out entire neighborhoods in Moscow? How would Beijing respond if genocidal jihadists beheaded and murdered your babies? I will give you a moment to reflect on that thought. But I believe every person, not only here in this room, across the globe, whoever is watching this discussion, knows exactly how you would respond.
谢谢主席，我的话会很简短，我只是想说，尊敬的以色列常驻代表，同以色列在这里辩论，不是我的本意。以色列把中国当成对手，也选错了对象。你应该明白，从这一轮巴以冲突一开始，中方就以非常明确无误的语言谴责一切伤害平民的行为，伤害平民、违反国际法的行为。我们所说的平民，既包括巴勒斯坦平民，也包括以色列平民。第二，你就今天的决议发表了评论，但我也要提醒你，你注意到，就在上周，安理会一份同样包含了谴责哈马斯攻击行为的决议，中国投了赞成票，而这项决议遭到了否决。第三，我在刚才的发言当中明确地提到，中国绝不是否认以色列的安全关切，相反，我们一直主张同等重视以色列和巴勒斯坦双方的安全关切和合法权利。当前的形势下，我们在处理好这一轮巴以冲突的同时，我们不能否认巴勒斯坦人民的权利是长期以来没有得到根本的保障。我们也认为冲突的根源在于两国方案没有得到很好的解决。我希望我们都能够本着诚实的态度，尊重事实，坚守正义，通过我们的共同努力，既解决好当前的问题，也能够让以色列人民、巴勒斯坦人民都能够共同生活在和谐、平安、幸福之中。谢谢主席。
That's the confrontation at the UN. What's your thought after watching that clip? And actually, Zhang's full answer is much longer. He explained in detail why he vetoed it. And they also published the full response on their website. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the reason that China vetoed it. If you want to read the text, you can find it in my YouTube community and on my Twitter. I publish those texts, and you can find the links to the website. If you prefer to continue to watch the video, I will read it to you now. So the few reasons that China vetoed that resolution, and I think Zhang's answer is just so based. perfectly explains why. So let's take a look. First, China is by no means indifferent to the sufferings of the people in Gaza. What China opposes is that the draft resolution selectively avoids referring to the root causes of the current humanitarian crisis in Gaza and fails to urge Israel to lift its full siege on Gaza and to rescind the evacuation order from northern Gaza. Such an evasive and ineffectual approach will only accelerate Gaza's falling into an even greater humanitarian catastrophe. Second, China is by no means denying Israelis' security concerns. On the contrary, China has always strongly advocated that equal attention should be paid to the security concerns and legitimate rights of both Israel and Palestine. What China opposes is that the draft resolution attempts to establish a new narrative on the Palestinian question, ignoring the fact that the Palestinian territory has been occupied for a long time and evading the fundamental issue of independent statehood for the Palestinian people. It is worth being vigilant that the draft departs from the spirit of previous UN resolutions and embeds the dangerous logic of the clash of civilizations and the justification of war and the use of force. Reason number 3, China is by no means indifferent to acts that harm civilians. What China opposes is that the draft resolution does not call on the parties concerned to stop indiscriminate and asymmetrical use of force, nor does it call for a thorough investigation into the heinous attacks such as the ones on the Al-Ahli hospital. Such selective applications of international law and double standards will only push more innocent civilians to the brink of death. Reason number 4, China is by no means opposing the Council's taking actions. What China opposes is that the draft resolution is invasive on the most urgent issue of ending the hostility. It has never been able to call for immediate ceasefire in the clear and unambiguous terms. If a council resolution is ambiguous on the question of war and peace and of life and death, it is not only irresponsible but also extremely dangerous. You know why China vetoed that draft resolution? Because in terms of the content, the draft is seriously out of balance and confuses right and wrong. In terms of the approach, the draft was introduced in haste and lacked the consensus it deserved. In terms of the effect, the draft does not reflect the world's strongest call for a ceasefire and an end to the fighting, and it does not help solve the issue. That's why China vetoed it. Answer from China's ambassador to the United Nations, Jingjing, explains a lot of things. It also reveals the double standards of many Western countries during this conflict. That's the first clip from China's representative at the United Nations. The next clips comes from Palestinians' envoy to the United Nations. Why so many Western politicians have completely different reactions to the conflicts between Russia and the Ukraine and the conflicts between Israel and Palestine? And when civilians, innocent children, women, civilians who are hiding in hospital were killed in Gaza, they still chose to support the occupier. I think the Palestinians' envoy's speech is very touching, very revealing. I mean, why you feel the pain of Israeli people died, but you don't feel the pain of Palestinian people died? Let's hear the words from Palestinian envoy himself.
Mr. President, in Gaza, a father tells his daughter about the birthday he was planning for her and asks her not to miss it. A mother laments, "My children died before they had a chance to eat." The thoughts that cross the mind of a mother in the face of such grief. 3,000 children in Gaza were killed by Israel in the last almost 3 weeks. I repeat, 3,000 children, innocent children, angels, killed in Gaza during the last 3 weeks. A man embraces his mother and pleads like a child. Come back, I beg you. Come back, and I will take you wherever you want. He hugs her and can let go. But there is no time to mourn. More death is on the way. 1,700 women were killed by Israel in the last 2 weeks. A young man wrote, "We will not leave Gaza. We will only leave Gaza to join the heavens." A few days later, he did. 7,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israel in the last almost 3 weeks. 70% of all those killed are women and children. Almost all killed are civilians. Is this the war some of you are defending? Let me repeat, is this the war that some of you are defending? Why some feel so much pain for Israelis and so little pain for us, the Palestinians? What is the problem? Do we have the wrong faith? The wrong skin color? The wrong nationality? The wrong origin? Nothing can justify war crimes, crime against humanity, and genocide. Nothing can justify the killing of a single Palestinian child. Nothing. Nothing at all.
The world is very divided over this conflict. Of course, there are many people, many governments, politicians support Israel. But I think recently, from Arab states to North America to Europe, people went down the streets to call for a ceasefire. I can show you some of the clips. This is in Chicago.
Shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down!
This is in London.
Palestine! 1, 2, 3, 4! Occupation no more!
And also on October the 28th, at the New York's Grand Central Station, a group called Jewish Voice for Peace organized a massive protest at this Grand Central Station. They are wearing black t-shirts saying, "Jews say ceasefire now," and "Not in our names," calling for freedom for Palestinians and an end to the bombardment of Gaza. Here are some of the clips.
Take a look right here. This is the east staircase of Grand Central by the Apple Store. You can see several hundred people gathered here calling for a ceasefire. This group calls themselves the Jewish Voice for Peace, and they support the pro-Palestinian cause. Again, they're calling for a ceasefire just after 6 o'clock. This is the afternoon rush here at Grand Central, and you're looking at several hundreds gathered here inside Grand Central right now. You actually see our 2 protesters up there by the departure board, up there holding up signs. Several people gathered here right now.
So, what's your thought on these conflicts? Let me know. Leave your comments in the comment section. I will continue to bring you more updates on this current conflict. Hey, have you signed up to my weekly newsletter yet? I've created a weekly newsletter on Substack. If you prefer reading news, about China and other international pressing issues, if you want to look beyond the mainstream talking points, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. You will have your news delivered to your email. Do you want to be a content contributor as well? If you want to get your articles, your stories, your perspectives being published, let me know. Here is my email box. jjnewsletter@hotmail.com. Let me know. If you prefer watching short videos, you can find me on TikTok. My name on TikTok is I am Jingjing. If you prefer interacting, discussing with people from all over the world, you can find me on Reddit. My subreddit name is News with Jingjing. If you prefer watching long videos, you can always stay here on YouTube. And you know I'm very active on Twitter as well, right? I will put the links of all my platforms in the description. I've been working as a journalist in China for more than 10 years now. I report stories related to China and also other international issues. But voices like mine are often being neglected, censored, or even attacked by Western mainstream media. I don't know, maybe one day these Western companies probably want to erase me from their platforms. So it's very important that you subscribe me on multiple platforms so you can always find me. Thank you so much for supporting me for such a long time. See you next time.